Are you utterly confused about what half and half is and how you can use it? Well, don't have a cow. Keep watching to learn everything you need to know about this delightful dairy concoction. People have been putting a splash of half and half in their morning coffee or afternoon iced Americano for a long time. But what exactly is it made of? Half and half is simply just a mixture of milk and light cream, and it's typically made with whole milk rather than skim or 2%. But that's it. Equal parts milk, equal parts cream, equals half and half. The name makes a lot of sense now. To truly call the dairy product half and half, according to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, it is required to consist of no less than 10.5% milk fat, but no more than 18%. From there, it can be pasteurized or ultra-pasteurized, or include stabilizers or flavors as long as the label notates its additions. There are a few varieties, such as low-fat and fat-free half and half, that use other types of milk or additives. But true half and half is about as simple of a dairy combo as it gets. A Reddit user recently asked about Americans' use of half and half in their coffee. Many responses highlighted the 3 attributes of this dairy product in comparison to milk or cream. That being its richness, creaminess, and sweetness. So while a splash of milk and a small heap of sweetener might give you a good cup of coffee, half and half will upgrade it to a decadent beverage. While we advise that you shouldn't add milk to your scrambled eggs, the combination of milk and cream has been found to be potent elsewhere. Not only does it boost the taste of coffee and other hot beverages, but it also enhances mashed potatoes, soups, and pasta sauces. It can also improve the velvety textures and flavors of milk or custard-based desserts, including panna cotta, ice cream, flan, and creme brulee. The Spruce Eats has taken this step further and showcased fancy cocktails that incorporate half and half, including Floating on Cloud 9, Angel's Tip, and a chocolate margarita. The biggest difference between the sum of half and its parts, milk and cream, is fat content. Half and half contains less fat than cream, but more than whole milk, with an 100-gram serving of half and half containing 7 grams of saturated fats. Saturated fats can have an adverse impact on health by increasing the risk of heart disease and cholesterol. However, you're still better off consuming saturated fats from full-fat dairy products rather than those found in sugary and fried foods. The nutrient profile of this same portion of half and half also includes 15% of the daily recommended value for vitamin B2, 11% for A and B5, and 8% for vitamin B12, calcium, and phosphorus. Most people assume low-fat and fat-free dairy products are healthier options than full-fat.
I see you're drinking 1%. Is that because you think you're fat?
However, according to Harvard Health, fat-free half and half is healthy in that you're not consuming fat, but it offers no particular health benefits beyond that. A review in the European Journal of Nutrition reported the following. Observational evidence does not support the hypothesis that dairy fat or high-fat dairy foods contribute to obesity. So ultimately, whether or not half and half is healthy still boils down to the type you consume as well as the overall quality of your diet. For in-store purchases, you can find half and half in the dairy aisle of most grocery outlets, such as Target. You'll generally find it packaged in pints, quarts, or mini cup singles. The mini cups may not be available at your local grocery store, but they can be purchased in packs of 24, 100, and 180 from Walmart and other big box chains. With so many people shifting towards online shopping as a necessity or a matter of simple convenience, you can also make an order for direct delivery to your home via online services like Instacart and Amazon. Most people will have access to half and half through the channels mentioned above. However, what happens if you're craving the particular flavor and texture of half and half but are lactose intolerant or vegan? You can use these same channels to get the ingredients you need to make a vegan half and half recipe, using coconut cream and dairy-free milk. It will need a little bit of extra patience and care, but because of the high-fat content found in coconut cream, this is a version that can be whipped. Add a cherry on top even if you're neither vegan nor lactose intolerant. Standing in front of the dairy cooler completely confused, you may find there's a ridiculous number of cream options. Seriously, how are there so many?
What's the matter, Pop? I'm confused.
Half and half is different from heavy cream, which is also different from whipping cream and light cream. But what's the difference when it comes to fat content?
Beats me.
Well, products with a higher fat content will result in a thicker cream. Half and half typically contains 12% fat, while heavy cream clocks in all the way up to 36% fat. 1 tablespoon of half and half will add 1.6 grams of fat to your count for the day, with 1.1 grams of that coming from saturated fat. Alternatively, 1 tablespoon of heavy cream will add a whopping 5.4 grams of fat to your count, with 3.5 grams from saturated fat. According to the US Department of Agriculture, adults consuming a 2,000 calorie per day diet should typically eat 44 to 77 grams of fat daily. And you might be surprised by just how easy it is to hit, or even exceed that number without even trying. But at least opting for half and half instead of cream will give you a fraction of the amount of fat you're adding to your morning coffee. If you've ever gone to the store and decided you were feeling brave enough to make your own whipped cream instead of using one of the aerosol cans in the dairy coolers, this may have happened to you. It's not uncommon to grab half and half off the dairy shelf instead of whipping cream. After all, it's pretty much in the same carton. But once you get home and try to whip it, you'll surely realize it doesn't work. And that's all due to the difference in fat content. You see, the thicker the cream and the higher the fat content, the easier it is to whip into stable peaks. Because of the lower fat content in half and half, it will never be able to achieve those fluffy, cloud-like peaks of whipped cream you're looking for. When making whipped cream correctly, you need heavy cream with its 36% fat content. That's what gives you a more versatile whipped cream that will hold its shape much longer than other options. With the difference in milk fat content of over 20% on average, there's just no way half and half is up to the task. When you throw heavy cream into a vodka sauce for your upcoming penne pasta dish, it usually will work right into the mixture without much fuss, adding a beautiful creamy texture to the sauce. But it's just not that easy if you've decided to use half and half. Dishes like quiche, mashed potatoes, or soups work well with the addition of half and half, and it can pretty well be used interchangeably with heavy cream. But it needs a little help along the way. Cream options with higher fat content are more resistant to curdling, but if you're using half and half, curdling can be avoided with tempering. To temper half and half, you should put a small amount of the hot liquid you're trying to add it to into a bowl. Then add the half and half and slowly whisk it. You should repeat these steps 2 times to slowly introduce the cream into the mixture before adding it back to your dish. This makes the temp gradually increase, rather than the abrupt addition that would cause curdling. When you grab your carton of half and half from the dairy cooler along with your gallon of milk, you may notice their best buy dates definitely don't match up. Well, different dairy equals a differing best buy date. And it's all due to the processing that occurs before dairy products hit the grocery store shelves. The majority of half and half products on the market are ultra-pasteurized before hitting the shelves. According to Cornell University, when a product is ultra-pasteurized, it's heated to a minimum of 280 degrees Fahrenheit, and it stays at that temp for at least 2 seconds. During this process, it kills any bacterial concerns. And from there, it's packaged in sterile conditions so bacteria can't find their way back into the product. Cornell University reports that on average, ultra-pasteurized products can hang out on the shelves for 30 to 90 days with refrigeration. But once the container is open, it becomes contaminated by open elements and only has 7 to 10 days left for ideal consumption. Because regular half and half is made up of the simple combination of cream and whole milk, the mixture leaves a bit of room for adjustments, particularly in the milk category. In theory, with options of 1%, 2%, and skim milk on the market, half and half producers could mix any option of milk fat percentages with cream. Whole milk is used as a standard to achieve that creamy consistency. But using low-fat milk offers consumers a welcome option with lower fat and calorie count. According to food labeling standards set by the US Food and Drug Administration, any product labeled low-fat must contain 3 grams or less of total fat per 100 grams, or no more than 30% of calories coming from fat. To achieve this title, some companies like Land O'Lakes will combine non-fat milk with cream to lower the fat content to less than half a gram per tablespoon. But even with the lower fat content, it can pretty much be used interchangeably with regular half and half. If the day comes when you wake up, head to the fridge, and try to pour yourself a cup of coffee with half and half, only to find the carton empty, there's still an alternative. Since half and half is literally just a mixture of milk and cream, you can easily make it yourself. If you're working on a recipe for baked goods or cooked dishes like soups or pasta sauces, making a substitution will work in a pinch if you run out as well. You'll simply need to mix equal parts of whole milk and cream together. Put the mixture in a jar or a cup with a lid and shake it up a bit. That's it. It is possible it might end up separating slightly when you add it to your coffee since it didn't go through the homogenization process, but it's barely noticeable. It's also possible to combine low-fat milk and heavy cream together for a lighter mix. Or if you don't have any heavy cream in the house at all, you can add a tablespoon of melted butter to a cup of whole milk to achieve the same consistency and milk fat content. If you've ever sipped on a White Russian, Spanish coffee, or even a key lime pie martini at the bar, chances are you've had heavy cream or half and half in your cocktail. Heavy cream is often added to cocktails to give them a creamy texture, breaking through a bit of acidity from the alcohol. But half and half is a great alternative to ask for when you're not all that interested in sipping on a whole cup of cream, and don't want to dilute the flavor of the alcohol. Plus, restaurants usually have it on hand more often since it's used for coffee anyway. But you can't just pour a bunch of half and half in a cocktail and assume it will mix together perfectly. There's a bit of science that goes on with the process.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
Of course you are. And that's why it should be obvious to you that because of the acidity of alcohol, it doesn't always mix well with just plain milk.
But, you already knew that.
Milk doesn't have a high enough fat content to fend off what happens during the curdling process, which is why heavy cream is often used. But if you introduce it correctly with just topping off your cocktail glass, half and half works wonderfully. And a little bit can go a long way in making a cocktail so much more delicious. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more mashed videos about your favorite ingredients are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.